All right, MYB community, thank you so much. We are here, episode number 269 of the Minding Your Business podcast. Entrepreneurship, real estate, trending news. There's still no business like minding your own. So glad that you could join us today. Continue to express and demonstrate your support. Uh, Subscribe to the podcast, 5 star, 5 star. That helps us to continue to grow the MYB community. And of course, you can catch me now. Check me out on my digital business card. Go to champ10k.com. That's champ, the number 10K, the letter K, .com. Check me out. That's where you can get access to all my sites and everywhere that you can find me on social media and everywhere. And you can also get your own digital card there as well. Very low investment, but great opportunity for you to connect with your network as you go about your daily walk. So glad for everybody that supported on social media here recently. I had the great, distinct honor of taking my family to Disney. And of course, I've been to Disney several times. This was my girl's first time flying and going to Orlando to do that. Of course, Mickey's still the biggest gangster in Florida. Uh, but him and Goofy and Minnie and Daisy and everybody, they do quite well. But it's a great opportunity. We got across all the parks. We took pictures, videos. Some I haven't even had a chance to share yet. But for those of you that have been and experienced Disney, you know kind of what that is and how much of a great time you can have there with your loved ones as you go and experience that. And we were able to do that just on this last week. So, but thank you so much. I was gone during that time. I try to make sure with family time that I engage in that, and I'm not spending a bunch of time on the phone and going and scrolling timelines and that sort of thing. So I appreciate everyone's understanding of that as we go through that. Two of my family members did not get the chance to go to Disney. Those are for those of you that know, Boss and Raja were here. They stayed here in Memphis, and they saved a lot of money in the process. but they stayed here and had a good time with their setup here, and didn't have to deal with us for a few days. So it is what it is. They seemed pretty happy when we got back, though, so that's always good. Speaking of those more furry family members, I've got a tremendous guest here for you today that's joining us, Liz Murdoch, who's the founding principal of Talking with the Dogs. And what I want you to do is, as you're listening to this, and once you get done, I want you to go to whatyourdogwants.com. Please make sure that's very important. Make sure you go to whatyourdogwants.com because that way you can learn more and connect with Liz and let her know that you heard her right here on the Minding Your Business podcast. But Liz, I can't thank you enough for taking time out today to join and kind of speak with us.
Oh, you're welcome. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. And we got a lot to talk about because for many that are listening, whether you're in business or you're not in business, many of us are dog supporters, dog lovers. Our dogs are a part of our family, and the way that we view them, the way that we care for them. And they're able to get ingrained in that family structure. And so let's take a step back, though, for everybody to learn more about yourself. Talk about kind of your journey to get to where you are today, and how you founded such a great company with Talking with the Dogs.
Well, thank you. It's been a circuitous route, I think, for anybody who has a business of their own. We do one thing and then we do another. And then I think for me, getting to a certain point in my life, it's like, I just wanted to integrate my passion with the dogs and what I know I can do. And that is understanding them intuitively, mixed with years of experience working with them. And I thought, I just have to do this. So that's a driving point on why I started this business. I was talking with dogs for a rescue. I was a dog evaluator.
Oh,
and
okay.
So I'd gone into homes for many years, meeting people who, life happens and they can't keep their dog. And
Right.
there's a variety of reasons. Grandpa died and he's got 2 dogs and the grandkids are allergic, and, life happens that people can't keep their dogs sometimes. So there are fabulous people who work with rescues who help facilitate rehoming an animal. And also a lot of things that people don't realize sometimes is that if a dog is purchased from a breeder, the
Hmm.
breeders typically will take the dogs back, and people forget that. So I just want to do a little plug. If somebody is in that situation, call your breeder.
Sure.
They have the tools to help. But anyway, so
Yeah.
I love the evaluating. And as I was doing it more, I realized I need to do something with the information that I'm getting from these dogs. And that's
Sure.
what led me to start the podcast of Talking with the Dogs.
Yeah.
Because the dogs, I'm blown away by things that they will share, a perspective shift, like, oh, wow, that's interesting. So it was using the information that I got individually with dogs that made me want to create a bigger business where I teach and I speak about it, etc.
Yeah. Yep, absolutely. And so, for everyone, make sure that you go on all the various platforms, right, Liz, where they can find the
Yeah.
podcast. Okay.
The podcast is on the platforms, Talking with the Dogs. Thank you. And,
Yes.
Instagram, a lot of people, if you're listening and you're like, okay, well, what is this? Or yeah, sometimes I think I know what my dog wants. Or like you noticed that your dogs were happy to see you, but they seemed like they were fine. And you get a knowing sense, well, wait, that was okay. I can leave them again. As we build that, we become better at it. And so a lot of people who like to work with me, they start at Instagram because they get to know me. And it's like, it's not we. I mean, it's weird only because we're not used to it. But
Sure.
as we become used to it, it's very real and it makes a huge difference. And that's why I'm so committed to doing this, is because I've seen it over and over with my own 3 dogs and the dogs I work with, and the information that my clients are able to use. Like a dog, they'll say, how's my dog doing? I'll say, well, it feels sort of nauseous. I said, I go, you just went to the vet. I think the meds, now I can't diagnose, but I can say the stomach feels swirly, feels nauseous. It feels like I have felt when there's like too much medicine or something, or the coffee's too strong. I said, why don't you ask your vet if there's any adjustments, if they ever adjust the meds, and just see what happens. And then they'll call me back and they'll say, we went to the vet, he took away such and such, my dog is fine.
Yeah.
So it's when we can give information that whether it's a trainer can then help them make an adjustment, or a vet, it's like, I'm so grateful to help the dogs. I want to advocate for them. So,
Right. Absolutely. No,
yeah.
that's definitely tremendous. And let's keep along that theme, Liz, in terms of
Mm-hmm.
why is it important to understand your dog, right? And that seems like that would be such a simple question with a very simple answer. But
Yeah.
I think oftentimes with pet owners, and not to speak for everybody, but they're because there's a language barrier often, obviously, between
Right.
people and animals. There's people tend to make just assumptions and just kind of do things for the dog,
Right.
or with the dog, assuming that that's going to make the dog happy is what I want, right?
Right. Yes.
And we often mischaracterize, or we just overall just miss the fact that the dogs have feelings, and the dogs have thoughts, and the
Mm-hmm.
dogs have concerns, and the dogs experience joy, and they experience happiness, and all these different things, right? That
Right.
I think sometimes just maybe a little bit counterintuitive to the human being, because we only think about that for ourselves. So for you and how you assist, dog owners,
Mm-hmm.
talk about that. Talk about the relationship between pet owner and pet, and how we can best communicate, and understand that communication is two-way, right? It's not
It's
just,
two
again,
ways.
one way from pet owner to the pet, which I think oftentimes becomes the reality for many of us, right? So can you speak on that a little bit and kind of help us out?
Yeah. So traditionally, I started dog training. I got my first dog. I was about 6, did dog training. It came very intuitively, won the blue ribbon with all adults. I was this little kid in the ring with adults, and I won because I was so in sync with my dog, and he and I had a bond. But people get a dog and they'll think, okay, we're going to train it. Not everyone trains it. They're just like, oh, just go over there. But training is typically, we tell the dog what we want it to do. That's traditionally what it's been. We want it to sit, we want it to stay down off the couch. And so that's how a lot of it people consider training. But then there's all these working dogs who are trained to sniff out and detect diabetes or epilepsy or something. And that relies on us, people, to pay attention to the cues. So if somebody has a service dog and this dog is reacting in a certain way, it's like the humans are following the cue, like, oh, the dog is telling me that my child is about to have a seizure. We're going to prevent it by doing whatever. So the reason they're able to do that so well is because they are paying attention to the dog's cues and the information the dog is telling them. And my whole thing is, let's expand that, and not just these select working dogs, but what about the dog? I have 3. And last night I was on the couch watching a movie. The room was dark and I heard this whimpering, and then I heard panting. So I was like, what is it? So I put my hand down, and my little dog, somehow she had gotten her paw in through her collar. So she could only walk on 3 legs, and it was stuck. And I guess the collar had gotten loose. It was weird. But she had come to me, made a whimpering sound. I respected that she was trying to interact with me. And because of that, I could get down on the floor, and I tried to pull her paw out. She whimpered and didn't like it, gave me a message. So I undid the lock, whatever it is, and released her, and then massaged her throat, and she was fine, and she's went running off. But I could have just been like, shh, 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 I'm watching a movie, but I didn't. Right. And so when somebody else gets that with their dog, and their dog is giving them information, when you pay attention to it here, like the whole reason she came to me is because I've honored her request over the years I've had her. So she knows that when she comes to me, I will respond.
Right.
So that's what listeners can do, is like, when you start, if the dog is barking, just don't tell it to shut up. Go see why it's barking.
Right.
And if okay, it's the 10th passerby, thank you very much. I see it. Good dog. It's okay. Reassure them, because you want them to bark like that if there's a fire out front, is my experience. So don't just tell them to shut up. Go see. And then if you want them to be quiet and cease, then you say, thank you, it's enough. You don't need to do that. And I know there's exceptions for the naysayers and all, but honoring the interactions and the messages your dog is sending you is so important for everybody.
Gotcha.
It's a great starting point.
Yep, it is. Yep, no doubt. And it's funny how everything that you described applies to between people.
Well, I started in education with people, yes, and then parenting, as you know, you've got young kids. A lot of it is the same.
Right. Yep, it is. It's very much the same. So is this, kind of the level of kind of discussion we could expect on the podcast for those that are going to dive in? I've already gone in and subscribed, and MYB community, I just want to share with you and just encourage you to make sure that you go and subscribe to Talking with the Dogs podcast, wherever you get your podcast content. Make sure you do that. But is that what we can expect on the podcast to kind of help us out?
Yes, I do some of that. I also do. I try and give a platform to guests who are not, have topics that might not be on every other dog podcast that the dogs would want people to know about. So my guest this last week was Noreen O'Sullivan, who does EFT tapping with children. I do it with dogs, but I wanted to get people to understand that there are different, like, this is an energy healing. If anyone's not familiar with tapping, where you tap, like the fireworks. I'm so scared of the fireworks. I hate the fireworks. They make me scared. I don't know what's happening. And tapping is very, they do it in hospitals with people. And Noreen does it with children and in animal therapy. When you do it on a dog, like my black lab, he loves it. And he will come over when he wants it. He will initiate it, and he'll put his chin up, and I'll go and I'll start tapping. You're such a good dog. Sometimes you get left out from the other dogs, but you're still loved. And I'll do the tapping on his body, or I do it on me with intention. So she was a guest just to plant seeds again for people to start considering alternative ways to enhance their relationship with their dog.
Sure.
So that's what's on my podcast also.
Excellent. Let's get your thoughts here, Liz. And we were talking about this a little bit offline, and just wanted to be able to share it with the audience.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, the pandemic comes along,
Right.
and the impact that it has on the human being, right?
Yeah.
Is without question. Often, I think what gets missed is the impact that gets cascaded down from how human beings respond to things and how they
Right.
operate to how that then impacts pets, good, bad, or indifferent.
Yeah.
What have you kind of seen, or through the pandemic as it relates to our dogs as pets?
Yeah.
What are some ways that we should have and should
Mm-hmm.
be communicating with them during this pandemic, and as we come out of the pandemic,
Right.
in regards to the impact that it's had, right, as that begins
Right.
to subside, how should we be a little bit better in communicating with our pets? I know you kind of described a little bit of that, but
Mm-hmm.
specifically as it relates to the pandemic, as listen, more of us were home more
Yeah.
often than normal, probably maybe doing more activities with the pets than normal, maybe in
Mm-hmm.
some cases doing less
Right.
with the pets, maybe economic constraints.
Yeah.
Then got cascaded to pets and things like that, and really just the emotional need, because this was a very emotional period. These last 16, 17 months, as of the
Yeah.
recording of this podcast, have been very emotional for people.
Yep.
And again, that oftentimes again that gets missed with our dogs. So can you speak to some of that kind of holistically?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a lot. That's a great question. So to me, there's two different things. There's the staying home with our dogs, and then there's leaving, going back to work, or even our schedules changing that we're gone from our homes for extended periods of
Sure.
time. So the thing about, well, the number one thing I still think goes back to communicating with your dog. And if you, for instance, if you live in a house and you've been in your home all the time, you can still practice your communication, like opening the front door. Trainers love this one, make your dog wait before you let the dog just run out. So there are
Yeah.
things we can practice before we give the dog food. Sammy, sit.
Right.
Make my dogs never get a treat without sitting. It's just habit now. And then when
Yeah.
I'm done, I show my hands. So there are I call them house rules that we can continue to practice just to strengthen the bond,
Yes.
and teaching them words to understand. Leave it. I dropped a piece of toast. Leave it if I don't want them. And the reason those words are important is that if you want your dog to leave the piece of toast, or there's a piece of tissue, it's just silly. Just leave anything. It doesn't matter. Their own toy. When you drop a piece of chicken on the floor, or your child does, a drumstick is on the floor, you want your dog to leave it like that, because I have paid $500 for a surgical removal of a chicken bone. So
Yes.
teaching them words, even if I know in many places the pandemic seems to be over and people are out, in other places it's like, oh, we're still locked down. Practice
Right.
those words with your dog. Leave it. And it doesn't even matter if you say, you pick a different word or a different language.
Right.
The idea of what you want your dog to do. So leave it is a great one. So
Yeah.
that's something that people can do that is a practical tool. You're communicating, you're talking, you're teaching, and you're bonding. Now, the other thing is assumptions and projecting. I'm going back to work. My dog is going to be a mess without me. Okay, maybe that's true, but I invite you to think, what if it's not true? What if your dog is like, so relieved you're gone, because now I can go into a deep sleep.
Right.
You
No,
came
it's
back,
true. It's true.
you came back and your dogs are fine. A lot of dogs are fine with an extended deep sleep. But what if, people are like, well, what do you mean projecting? It's like, what if going back to work, yeah, you're leaving your dog, but what if it's about now facing the reality that you hate the car that you drive to work, you hate the drive to work, you hate the work, you hate the office place, you hate the person you sit with, all of those things that are real. I mean, I've been there, so by focusing on our dog is so upset, then we're not focusing on the reality, like, oh man, I need to make a financial decision. What am I going to do about my car? I wanted to go on vacation, but I need to fix my car to get to work. I love the pandemic because I didn't have to drive my car, but now I have to face the issue about my car. So assumptions And projections are really important when looking after your dog, because if you focus on the separation that you think your dog is feeling and not acknowledging this is really about some other issue. I don't want to drive an hour to work every day. I hate the traffic. I don't know what to do.
Right.
That is sometimes the real issue.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
So that comes up, and I say that because that's important in knowing how to best support your dog. If you take away the stress of the person's personal issue, then you see the only issue about that I'm really worried about is letting my dog to go to the bathroom after 4 hours, or whatever your dog's needs are.
Instrument. Yeah, and let's stay there too for a minute, because one of the things with Boss and Raja, and they're actually here with me.
Hey, boss, you want to say something?
Yeah. Well, they're in their deep sleep.
They often do.
But they're listening, I guess, all the same, because when you said Boss's name, his ear perked up.
Oh yeah, they know exactly what's going on.
But so when you talked about like using the restroom, one of the things that we've had somewhat of a challenge with, and probably other dog owners as well, is that restroom schedule.
Right.
My two tend to like to use it in the house, and although we do try to make sure we take them out to do that. What are some best ways or recommendations that you would have? Because I imagine that we're experiencing that, maybe others are as well, as getting them on that consistent schedule, particularly when our schedules aren't quite as predictable. Even just being here at home, because many of us are working, and you're in, if you're kind of in business and that sort of thing, you're in meeting after meeting after meeting. You spend all day on Zoom, and then you finally get a break between Zoom calls, and you're like, okay, let me run grab a sandwich, let me run grab something to eat, and let me take the dogs out. But now they've already used it in the house and that sort of thing. So what are some things that you shared, maybe best practices to help us?
So knowing your dog's schedule is, and I mean, you've already mentioned you're living with a family and you've got kids, and and this came up with a family. They had 3 dogs and 4 people living in the house, all different ages and doing different things. And it's like, did you let the dog out? Oh, the dog went to the bathroom. Meanwhile, the dog went to the bathroom in the human's bathroom. So the dog has a sense of what's going on. Right. And, when you go for a walk, is it from here to the stop sign and back? Or are you actually slowing down to give your dog a time to go to the bathroom or wherever its spot is? So knowing your dog, if dog number 1 can hold it for 4 hours, then set a timer. If you are going to be on a call, hey, I'm going to be on a call. Can you let the dog out? It needs to go out by 10, or just say 9:30 to give it an extra half an hour window. Right. Make sure that you've got it worked out with the other people in your home, who's feeding the dog, if you want a time schedule, or who's taking the dog to go out, or if you have a bell by the door that the dog rings, or whatever a home does for the dog to be able to communicate it needs to go to the bathroom. But being aware. So I have a dog she's going to be 14, and she can't hold it as long. And so that's my responsibility to think, oh, I used to be 6 hours. Now it's probably about 4. Yeah. By observing the nuances and the signs that your dogs give you will help build that relationship and help you know when to do for them. Before I go on a podcast, I always put my dogs out for everything, and then we come in and they're silent. So that's what people can do, especially if there's multiple people in the house. Who's going to let the dog out or feed it? Yeah, that's the biggest thing I would say with that kind of specific thing about the bathroom, and the schedule, and then knowing that as they age, whether it's a puppy, it's going to need to go more often. Yeah. And then as it gets older, it's going to change. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's one of the challenges too, is like, our girls are young, and many people that, they may have those younger children that may not always be in tune with the proper schedule. But you can, how old are they? 11, 10, and 8. So no, they can do it. And I know that every child's abilities are different, and they have strengths in one area, and the dog might be a whole other thing. But I know, because I won the dog training award, I know that there are some children at 8 years old who can be very responsible and help. But you can
Absolutely.
start teaching them. You can ask them, today, I'm going to be on a call, even if it's practice, and the dog doesn't have to go. Can you let the dog out at 9 o'clock? If when it's 9
Right.
o'clock, I want you to do this. You're going to teach them. It's just like getting up for school. Start teaching them certain tasks. Can you do this for me? Oh, did you do it? Yes, I am so appreciative. They can start learning little things for sure.
Absolutely.
Put it on their, it's Monday, it's so-and-so's job to let the dog out in the morning. Whatever. I'm a big believer that kids can be empowered to do tasks with the dogs. Most of the people that I have found that I work with who have like really strong connections in their pet business, they had a dog and a close bond as a child.
Yeah. Absolutely. No, they're well, and all things considered, they do a good job. It's just, you're right though. The other piece of it is just that kind of coaching development with the scheduling and making sure that we're not just sitting staring at iPads, that we're in tune with what's going on. And
child number 1 is going to do it on Tuesday. Child number 2 is Thursday. It's your day to make sure the dog gets out in the morning.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. No, definitely. That's really good stuff, Liz. That's really rich.
Thank you.
I think we all can take something and learn a little bit, from that to be a little bit better. So as we go forward, and for you, let's talk about that. What's kind of next for your business? Obviously, people being pet owners is always going to be kind of a staple, right?
Right.
Certainly here in America. And in many cases, I imagine it's increasing. When I've talked to, our breeder, her business, and she's been breeding, since the 70s.
Yeah.
And she said, I just haven't seen it like this. I mean, even pre-pandemic, it was,
right.
and I think there's some areas, obviously, with, preferences from human beings that evolve that have resulted in the increase for pet ownership, which I think is really great. But what do you see kind of next for your business? What's kind of, how does your business, how does the podcast continue to evolve to help meet the needs of pets and pet owners, particularly dog owners?
Yeah. Well, yeah. I'm doing more coaching of people who want to go deeper, like I'll say to clients, and it didn't start out like, oh, I'm going to try and get them to do this. But when I say to people, when you got your dogs, or the dog will say, oh, he picked me out, or it was a really special moment when they adopted me. And usually often there's a knowing that this is the dog for us. Even with people who have breeding experiences, who the breeder will say, based on what you said, this is the dog that I am picking for you. And then people will go and they'll say, oh my gosh, whether I don't think that's a dog, what about that one? And then the dog comes, just something that people have these stories. So I have said, what if you could have that knowing of when you got your dog more often? And it's like a light bulb, and the people are like, yeah, I do know. I noticed such and such here and there, but not very often. It didn't make sense. And I'm like, okay, well, I give them assignments. Well, so anyway, so that's growing, and I'm getting more and more requests for the classes, and both the private coaching and the group and the mentoring. When they've studied with other animal communicators, there's still a need, because we all do things differently, coming into my circle. So that's growing. And I've got about to launch a masterclass kind of thing about the pandemic and helping people tune into themselves, their dogs, and fine-tuning the connection. So I've got that coming. The podcast, I still have people coming. I have been making some changes on the podcast to really give very practical tools for people, because that's what people want. And that is my mission, is really helping to empower people and educate. I also am very interested in the research behind this and developing the more relationship with the people doing research on it, so that we take it more seriously as a part of our dog relationship, the intuitive communication with them.
Yep, absolutely. It's more of a personal question, because my dogs, my Cocker Spaniels, they are brothers.
Okay.
They do share a parent.
Uh-huh.
Are dogs aware of that? Are they aware of their relation with other dogs? I'm curious. Like would they know they're brothers?
Okay, so I'll do a tune in. So this is one thing though that I get is that in it's like children.
Yeah.
You can have I had a friend who said, she has 3 daughters. The first
Yeah.
daughter, she said, I'm the perfect parent. She said she knew she had this down. The second child came and she's like, oh wow, this is a little different. This is interesting. They're different. Third child, she's like, I don't have a clue what I'm doing. So, I think it's sort of like that with dogs are different, even in the same breed. It depends on the dog. And so specifically on your 2,
Yeah.
do they know they have very different personalities?
Right. They do.
Yes. Okay. So I've never met these dogs. I can tell one is like this and one is like this. They have a bond. Now, is that like a genetical, biological bond? So I see, that's how I work. I see like a cord kind of thing that does connect them. But there's also, is one darker color than the other?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So they're very different. I mean, they can go their own ways, but it's like a magnet pulls them together. So that's a feeling. I speak in metaphors. So,
Sure.
So they have very different interests. I do feel they have a different mother.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So there's something similar. There's something different. So do they know that they're brothers? Okay. And so that's where I get into the philosophical, like the brotherhood of, I mean, this is what I'm getting
Right.
from
The
them.
energy. Yeah.
It's more like the brotherhood of, dogdom kind of thing. It's how they see themselves about the brotherhood. Do they consider themselves brothers like your children consider themselves? Not really. I mean, to a little bit, but they feel, okay, the darker dog, are they sitting on each side of you? For some reason, I'm
yeah. So one sleep on a pillow down over here, and then the other's asleep. Well, he just looked up, but he's down here.
Okay, so that's funny.
Yeah.
So for the listeners, I had no idea where these dogs were. So this dog over here is more sociable, and
Let's do it.
Pardon me?
Let's see. I'm going to try to see if can you see. Okay, so there's Boss.
Hi, Boss. How you doing? How are you? Okay, Boss wants to be left alone.
Yeah, and then here is Raja.
Yeah. Okay, hey, Raja. So Raja, you want to say hi? I'm an animal communicator. You don't have to look up, but you can send a message intuitively if you want. This Raja is way more sociable and wants to know what's going on with. He monitors the kids. He
does.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So see, this is how it works. I get this feeling, and then like my hands are moving, so I get this feeling that he has to check in. Sometimes he'll stop if he needs to, but otherwise he's like like a shark who just swims around, checks, and keeps going.
Right.
So he's very committed in the family. So he's not more bonded to Boss than he is to the other family members. If that's what you mean by brothers, he's in the whole family.
Right. There you go.
Yeah.
That's good. I was just always interested in that because so we've had both of them. Actually, both of them were around 6 weeks old when we got them. Boss back in 2017, and then Raja last year. So actually, this past Friday, Raja turned 1. So he just had his first birthday.
Yeah, happy birthday, Raja. You want to know anything? Okay, so he doesn't. I'm going to ask him if he wants you to know anything. Well, first he's like, keep up the good work. Okay, so Raja, here's the thing and for anyone listening about animal communication, and I try and be as specific as possible, because if I say Raja really loves you, some people, I mean, that is true. He likes you a lot too, and he's fascinated. He likes to follow what you do because you're different from you're different from the kid. So he's like, oh, what's he gonna do now? Is right. What Raja likes to find that. So I try and get as specific as possible. Sure. And also, if something doesn't make sense, I try and say, like, okay, tell me what you like about him, what he does. So he hopes you're going to drop some crumbs or something.
Right.
So
Of
that's
course.
part of why, yeah, but that's not something that I always tell people. So it's getting specific and
Yeah.
asking, Raja, what else do you want to know? So now boss is saying, well, what about me? Do I get a chance? Boss doesn't like to be left out.
Yeah.
So boss watches Raja and then comes in to be included.
That is true.
Yeah.
Yep, that is true. And he fusses at Raja a lot. That's the other thing.
Because he's happy to have Raja do the dirty work, but boss wants to be included and get equality because I was here first. So
Right.
boss wants a chance to say, what do you want to know? Oh, okay. So he has a totally different energy field, bot.
Right.
It's like, okay, boss, what slower, calmer. Boss, what do you want
Right.
anyone to know? Okay, so let me know what it is because we don't have all day. So boss, what do you want to know? I like it here. Oh, boss likes the creature comforts and soft things, whereas Raja can be like hyper kinetic, like can move quickly and like when the energy is bouncing around, Raja's fine with that. Boss says not so much.
He doesn't like that. Yeah.
No, he needs it. It overwhelms him. It's too much. He feels like it's coming at him, whereas Raja is navigating through it.
Right.
Raja can just,
true.
yeah.
No, that's definitely true.
And so then I get a feeling like, okay, I'm done, boss. I got that right. Boss feels like it's coming at him, and Raja does. People are like that. There's similarities.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. There's a lot of parallels that we're drawing here.
Yeah. I specialize. I love doing it with the dogs.
Right.
I can do it with people a bit, but I really want to help the dogs. And there's a lot of other people who do that kind of intuitive work. But it is very similar, whether with people or animals.
Yep, absolutely. We talked a little bit about kind of like like daycare and things like that.
Yeah.
What are some things you'd recommend for dog owners when evaluating a daycare facility?
Yes. So it's nice when they have cameras.
Yes.
It's also nice the staff that works there. How long have the people been here? If there's high turnover and somebody has, Susie's going to walk your dog, or our people, they've been here 3 weeks. That is sort of alarming. I mean, I live in Los Angeles, and there's a lot of actors who will dog walk because they can. When they get a call, but I've asked them, okay, I'm going to book you for Wednesday at 10 a.m. What happens if you get an audition? Well, I'll have my friend do it. It's like, well, I haven't met your friend. My dogs don't know your friend. But that people will send that. If you have a dog sitter coming to your house and, what happens if there's an emergency? They'll say, oh, I can do it now. What's the backup plan? Because I had somebody who got a flat tire. So you can ask those questions. How many staff people, how long, when you walk them, how long have the people been walking? Because there's sadly in LA, you hear stories of dogs that slip out of collars. I had a woman, I said, because I attach a double, whatever those things, like a lock that hikers use so that the leash won't come off, the collar, because I don't want a lost dog while I'm out of town. So I said, do you know how to do this? Yes. I said, okay, can you show me? I just want to make sure and put it on you. I'm hypersensitive about my dogs. I really don't want a sad lost dog story. Right. So can you show me you know how to do it? Why don't you do it? She couldn't do it. She was fumbling and she goes, oh, I guess I don't. And I'm like, so it's okay to ask the questions. You're not interrogating people, but you're just making sure that it's the right fit for you. Exactly. And you can interview a couple different places or the people that are coming to your home. I have Ring. If you want to check, because people get stuck in traffic and they're supposed to come within a 2-hour window, and there's an emergency and it was 5, or what are you comfortable with your dog, and start now and have a backup person. So when I travel and I have a house sitter with my dogs, I still have a backup, and I have somebody who walks them. I always have a backup.
Yeah. No, makes total sense.
It's a lot of work, but it's worth it, I think, just in case. I mean, I had the girl gave the dogs too much food, And she texted me that I'm out of dog food. And I was like, oh my gosh, I bought extra dog food on top of the refrigerator. She used it all up. And this is not to make horror stories. It has a happy ending. So I said, oh gosh, can you go get some more dog food? I told her what it was. And she said, I don't have a credit card. I don't have enough money to buy it.
Okay.
So I called my backup and said, this is before Venmo. So this was a while ago. So I called my backup and we got it worked out. But just having emergency plans and thinking it through now, so that it's not an issue. It doesn't have to be an issue. It can work out. We can live our lives.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that makes total sense, and those are good kind of best practices and thoughts to keep in mind as we all do that evaluation, based on where we are geographically and what's available to us, that sort of thing. No, it makes total sense. Total sense, Liz. I love that.
Yeah. There's a lot of good people out there, so I don't want to scare people, but it's like if you had a child, you would do due diligence. And you can do that, with your animals. And it's just knowing what to do and what question. It's okay to ask questions.
Yeah, no doubt about that. As we get to kind of wrapping up, Liz, as this has been really dynamic and really rich, and we look forward to hearing more as we listen to you on Talking with the Dogs, the podcast. And everybody gets plugged in there, and also make sure MYB, when you go listen to the podcast, leave a 5-star written comment as well.
You. So that, yes, those make a difference.
Yeah, so that the podcast can continue to grow and reach even more of an audience. So make sure you do that as you listen to episodes, and as you go to the website that I mentioned earlier, whatyourdogwants.com. Make sure you connect with Liz there. But yeah, I guess as we kind of wrap up, a lot of people, I think, Liz, when they're looking to become a dog owner, right, and they often ask about breeds and things like that. What are your thoughts there for singles, versus say like families with younger children and things like that? What should people be aware of when they're looking at certain breed of dog to have as a pet?
It depends on the family. I probably am not one who's going to say, oh, your family should pick one of these 3 breeds. Yeah. Because I'm the kind of person that I got a phone call. Can you foster a dog? Yeah, sure. I get the dog the next day and I end up adopting him. I had no plans to get a 3rd dog, but now I have 3 dogs. So I just sort of follow if the dog comes into my life. Okay. But not anymore. And that can work for a lot of people. But I think the number one thing is who's living in the home that's going to interact with the dog. And don't try and talk your husband or your wife into getting a dog, or my roommate won't care. I've had a dog say, there are 4 people who live in the house and one of the people isn't nice to me. I want to stay in the bedroom when you're not home. And the woman said to me, I know who he's talking about. There was a roommate who wasn't nice to the dog. It's like, so know who's in the house. In terms of the breed, if you've got children, you want a dog, you want to know your children first. How are they going to, some 5-year-olds. I mean, my daughter grew up with a 130-pound dog who refused to take a Cheerio out of her hand because he was so trained. Know how your children are going to behave if you're going to have a dog. Some children, watch your dog. So I was bit by a 6-pound Yorkie and it hurt. So I'm not bad-mouthing Yorkies by any means. It's the small dogs can also cause pain, trauma. It's what works for you and your family. If you are going to go to a breeder, make sure it's a reputable breeder. You make sure that of all those things. So it's more about where you're getting your dog from. If you get it from a shelter or a rescue, that can be fine too. Big dogs get big. If you've got a child who's like you've got 2 dogs. If you have a child who doesn't like energy coming at it, then they might want a dog that's going to stay smaller. But there are big, it depends. Reach out to me if anyone wants help. I'll do it for free. You can see it. I'm a big believer. It depends on the dog.
Yeah, definitely.
And the disposition, the dog, the people.
Yeah, no, very, very, very true. That's great advice and great, ways to kind of provide us all some food for thought there,
Yeah.
Liz, as we you consider that. So, listen, I know we've got to wrap up. We've taken up actually a little more time than I was intending to, because I know you're definitely busy in your day, and we were able to connect on Clubhouse. I saw that you're actually out there and do some things on
Yes.
Clubhouse, which is really good and dope because
Yes.
I'm out there as well. So
Yes, I
how could
followed
people
you. I
connect with you there?
connected. Yes, so maybe we'll do a chat there. But yeah, if
Yeah.
anyone, Clubhouse has been great. There's so many dog people on there with great resources and tips. I'm happy to share an invite if someone needs one. But yeah, I look forward to seeing you there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I host some rooms on there. I'd love to maybe have you as a guest in a room on
Sure,
Clubhouse. It's a lot of real estate people, and
that's
I think
okay.
what would be a good conversation is kind of managing your real estate business as a pet owner, right? And how to make sure a lot of things that you talked about today, how to be in tune with as you're operating your business or you're launching your business. I think would make a really good conversation room on Clubhouse. So maybe we connect on that.
Yeah, what does your dog think of this house? Because that comes up a lot where the dogs say, I like the new house, and people project. I saw someone, our dog is sad we're moving. The dog's not sad they're moving. The dog is like concerned that its toys are all in a box. So
Right.
yeah, there's a lot about houses. So yeah, I think we should definitely do that. And we can do that. I have a clubhouse room with the dogs. So for dog chat. So maybe
Yeah.
we can do it in both places.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that'd be great. Yeah, we could got to do a bi-directional, kind of event that way. So yeah, let's definitely stay in touch and communicate on
Okay,
that for
perfect.
sure, Liz. But
Yes.
Liz Murdoch is our guest today. They're in SoCal,
Yes.
of all places.
Right.
Talking with the Dogs is the podcast. Make sure again you tap in with her there, as well as on Clubhouse. Make sure that you're following her kind of across
Yeah,
social
both of
media.
us.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, they definitely got to make sure they're doing that with me. I mean,
Mhm.
they can't be tied in with the Minding Your Business community and not do that with me. I want to make sure they do that with you
Thank you.
as
Thank
well.
you.
And make sure you go to whatyourdogwants.com.
Hmm. Yeah.
Do that, and that link is in the show notes, so you can click right there and make sure you go and learn a little bit more about our guest today and what she does to help us with our family members that we've acquired along the way, that we picked up, that we all love dearly and want
Yeah.
to make sure they have the best, and we want to make sure we're the best for them
Right.
as well. And so that's very important. And so this is a important conversation for those that are dog lovers and have dogs as family members. So, Liz, thank you so much again for taking time out
You're
today with
welcome.
us.
Yes.
This was tremendous.
Oh, thank you. And I hope it was helpful what Raja and Boss wanted you to know.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think it's good for them because they're stretched out and resting pretty well.
That's
Well,
good.
minute. Raja must be in there with the girls because he's gotten up and moved around, but Boss is still relaxing a little bit. So
Good.
he's definitely getting his rest in for sure. And then he'll be up and moving around maybe when I do.
Yeah.
So my wife talks about Raja is kind of a little bit more her dog. We picked up that second dog last year when we
Uh-huh.
took the trip to the breeder, and then I actually went and picked up Boss. That's why he's a little bit more partial to me, because I was the one that actually picked him up by myself from the breeder and
Oh, he
brought him
bonded with
back. So we kind of bonded early on, and so it's a little bit different, and it's kind of funny to see their different personalities develop. So.
Well, it's nice that you allow that, because that can be an issue. And we'll talk about this on Clubhouse, folks, about
Yeah.
when you have two dogs, and honoring that they can be very different, and not trying to make them both go to the dog park if they don't want to, and one does one thing and one does another. So that's great that you're allowing them to
Yeah.
be who they are.
Yep, absolutely. Definitely. Definitely for
Yeah,
sure. So, Liz, again, thank you so much.
you're
And
welcome.
definitely enjoy the rest of your day. We're going to be in touch so we can do our
For sure.
clubhouse thing for sure. Definitely.
Okay, sounds
Definitely.
good. Thank you.
Yep, absolutely. So that was Liz Murdoch, folks, here on episode number 269 of the Minding Your Business podcast. If you enjoyed that, make sure that you reach out to me. You can email me, Ron at themybpodcast.com. That's Ron at themybpodcast.com. Email me. you could definitely connect with Liz there on her social media, and those links are in the show notes as well. So make sure that you tap in with her there. Thank you so much for your listening ear, for your participation, for sharing this podcast across your networks. I really, really appreciate that. If I can be a resource, make sure you go to champ10k.com. That's champ10k.com. That's where you can connect with me. I've got free and discounted resources there for you. If you are in the real estate space, or if you're looking to buy and sell property, I'd love to be able to be a resource for you there and kind of put that experience to work with you. Listen, 3 things that unite us all, no matter where you're from, whether you are human or if you are a dog, as we've talked about today. There are 3 things that unite us all, regardless. We all want to be a little bit better for ourselves, a little bit better for our families, a little bit better for our communities. And if we can keep that in mind with everybody that we come in contact with, including our dogs and including our pets, we can all collectively make this place just a little bit better. Champ Ron, the Minding Your Business podcast. Go be great.
Yay.